when you guys came into the WWE as the NWO in 2002, there's obviously this famous kind of promo with you and The Rock, with what he calls you and the beef that you guys had briefly. Talk a little bit about that, and was he going over lines that he was going to say with you before he said them,
No,
or was
no, it was just one of those things that we were the NWO, and basically because the WCW turned it so chaotic at the end, we had all split up and everything else. They thought that if you got the original Beatles back together again, that it wouldn't work. That magic was gone. That luster was gone. And then the minute they brought those three characters back out with those black and white shirts on in Milwaukee for No Way Out, the place went crazy. We were the number one selling shirt, and every guy in that locker room went, kill them. And that's what happened. So,
I do want to ask you about the 2011 run that you had. You came out of SummerSlam, you powerbombed CM Punk, and then I believe you said before that was going to be a one night thing.
yeah, I just finished Magic Mike.
So then there's the promo with you and Punk, where the lol. I thought Kevin Nash was dead, all that kind of stuff. When you guys were working together, what was it scripted that all that stuff was going to be there? Was it something that was off script? How did you feel about it all?
He would. I was told specifically not. I could not speak by Vince, and then so I don't. If I can't speak, I really don't care what he's going to say because I'm not allowed. I'm not allowed to have any kind of rebuttal. So he goes out there and buries me. But I never understood. So I came out of the crowd and I hit him with a power bomb, and Del Rio came down and took his belt. So I cost him to be the world champion. I'm in the ring. He comes out and stands 200 feet away from me on the ramp on the stage and walks back and forth and cuts a promo where anybody else would be pissed off at me and would come down and charge me. And Paul and I are very, very close. And I've never had an argument with Paul. But the click Kevin Nash is, as he's cutting this promo and kind of burying me, I'm thinking, and I've got a microphone, I'm just not saying anything. I'm thinking, what would he do if I said, shut up, bitch, and start walking, get out of the ring and start walking up that ramp and say, I don't work for this company. I said, if this was prison, I'd be selling your ass for cigarettes. Just keep walking and go up there and just say, I'm going to smack you in the face if you say another word. I'm not under contract. He's Mr. Pipe Bomb. How would have that played out?
Very differently, I think.
He would have been dead.
But is the story true about when you and Punk were going to have the match? There was a story at the time about you were on blood thinners, so they couldn't clear you. Is that true?
No. He cut a promo that was not scripted, that basically told Paul that if he was looking for his balls, maybe they were in Stephanie's purse. It wasn't scripted. Paul got hot. We came back. Paul sat down in the locker room. He looked at me. He goes, I'm so tired of that skinny, fat son of a bitch. You're not wrestling him. I'm beating him. And I said, I'm not wrestling him? He goes, no. I said, all right. I'm not wrestling him.
Do you think that, that it kind of feels like that as part, because then they have the match at Night of Champions where Hunter beats him.
Right.
And then 2.5 years later, it's like, Punk, you're going to have this WrestleMania main event with Hunter. And he's like, I'm leaving. And then now, in 2026, they're bosom buddies. They're great pals. Did you ever see that coming?
No. But, I look at like Phil's career, And he cuts great promos and talks about, he doesn't know how much longer he's got. And I'm thinking, well, you dumbass, you sat at home for 10 years of it. It's just like, maybe he was doing that warrior thing. Didn't want to dye his hair.
Last thing I wanted to ask you about was you get put in the Hall of Fame in 2015, and then the next night they do the match with Sting and Hunter at WrestleMania. Were you surprised that Sting came in, and what are your memories of being involved in that match with the NWO and DX?
I was surprised, but it was one of those things where I knew Steve would, it wouldn't have felt like he had done everything in his career had he not, went to WWE. But he knew the reason he didn't go was he saw what they did to everybody before him. So they knew that, he knew he was going to get and then he did. So it's after the Hall of Fame, and I'm walking towards the locker room, and Paul says, "Kev." I'm like, "Yeah." I think he's just going to say congratulations. And he says, "What'd you wear today?" I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Here." I said, "Sweatpants and an Under Armour shirt." He goes, "What'd Scott wear?" I said, "I know." I said, "We same we always get on." I said, "We don't get dressed up." He says, "What's Hogan?" I said, "Hogan's the same." I said, "What's going on?" He goes, "Would you guys want to go out to Levi's Stadium and do a walkthrough? We're going to use you guys tomorrow in my match with Sting." And I'm thinking, really? And then we go out there, and then DX shows up. And I'm like, oh, so we're doing this. And we were out there for a while, and it was cold too. It got cold. And we walked through the thing, and the next day was so funny when the DX guys went down, and the NWO came afterwards, and it was a long it seemed like it was a mile to the ring, and we were really high because in that Levi's Stadium, it holds like 89,000 people. It's a big football stadium, and we're at the top of the ramp, and they play our music, and we peek around the corner, and there's a big difference between a crowd of 16,000 erupting and a crowd of 88,000 erupting. And it was really special for me because I knew in my heart this was the last time I was ever going to get this fucking rush again. Never going to happen again. So and Hogan turns and looks at me and Scotty goes, "So we're going to kind of jog down there, take our time." I said, "I don't think we have an option." And if you watch it back, you can see us kind of talk, you can see us all kind of chuckle, and then we all kind of straighten up and we just walk down. And it seemed like it took a week. And Billy Gunn, who's just like the world's greatest athlete, who does not run with his feet like this, came running to me like a silver bullet, but tore me in half. But that was the last of it.
And this is a repeat thing, but I know your answer to this. So in WWE sort of narrative documentaries, DX is painted as the bigger group than the NWO. Even though if you were around, that's obviously not the case. What is your view on that narrative?
I think people look at wrestling as they look at the Bible, or as they look at religion, and I think it's like there's BC, and then there's before NWO. Because I think wrestling, that period with the NWO changed the way the business, changed it forever. you know. So I think, I mean, even though my closest friends were part of DX, they were just a rip off of us.
You had a more foul comparison last night of what you.
I did have a foul comparison last night, and I didn't know. I knew that it was effective, and I knew that people laughed, but I thought like I can see I can see her, I can see her. Like last night it was like I couldn't see any females. It was all guys, and it was the lighting was for. And I can kind of see, like I can see these guys real well. I'll see that mother opening those beers in my dream. Kidding. Not at all. So yesterday's analogy was the nWo was a 12-inch penis. And DX was a 9-inch penis. And no matter how you look at it, how it boils down, when you pull out the ruler, there's just one that's 12 and one that's 9, and there's one that's bigger and one that's not. And the nWo is the 12-inch cock. And that 12-inch cock is still selling T-shirts. So I'll just leave it at that.